My name is Sarah Morgan. I was born in Moyers, West Virginia, and I grew up in Moatstown and down here on Entry Mountain. My mother is Kelowna Moats, and my so-called daddy is Earl Moats.
And who are your grandparents?
Deli Francis Moats and Berlin Moats. Albert Moats and Clarice Moats. Well, I know a lot of my aunts and their kids, where they went to school and where they were raised and what all they did when they was coming up as kids. They had to walk to school and stuff, and they had elder men like Delmer Willis was their school teacher and principal, and then they just farmed the rest of the time. My mother just usually talked about how they were raised, what they had to do when they were children, because they couldn't go play and stuff like that. They had to work in the cornfields and the hay fields. And my mother had to quit school when she's in the 5th grade to help to raise the other ones. And she had, I think, 7 sisters and brothers. Now my dad, I don't know about his, but my mom had a rough time when she was coming up. She had to help take care of the rest. She never got credit for anything she did. Sometimes they would get mad at her, and then we'd be in a hayfield. Mom wouldn't even come in to eat lunch because she was afraid they would beat her and everything. That's how she was raised. She was next to the oldest ones. They farmed. They raised all their meat. They raised their own gardens, and they canned everything. That's what they did. Well, I wasn't very old, but I can remember when I was about 6, we had to go out in the cornfield and hoe corn while they plowed it and stuff like that. And we had to go out and shuck hay with wooden rakes and stuff and put it in shocks. Then we'd put it on an old wagon and haul it in with horses. I do remember those. We had 1 hour on Sunday to go play, and that was it. And you'd better not be late within that hour coming back. We'd play, I don't know if you ever heard them, Red Rover, Hanny Over, and Kick the Can, and we thought play softball. That's what we did when we was kids, and tag. My mother was a homemaker. I think my daddy worked with the John Deere thing. I go with black. Well, really, people don't know that I am black till I tell them. They'll be talking, and I said, excuse me, I am black. I had that problem at work. They had a diversity thing. And the man says, we have 1 black in this unit here. And I raised my hand. I said, no, you have 2. I mean, I like the black situation myself. This is the way I was taught, and this is the way I was raised. I try not to judge nobody, white or black. I feel like this: if you treat and respect me, I will treat and respect you. I was at work. I'd had 1 guy out of about 47 people. Every day he wanted to pick on me. I'd get his material and stuff, set it by his machine and his lab work and everything. He would get a horse driver and take it back in the well. I got tired of it. I went to the supervisor. I said, you need to do something with him. If you can't, I will go over your head. I said, I will not get his material for him no more. I will not get his job tickets. And I never did after that. But I had to go to the top to get it stopped. I really don't go nowhere that much to get raised, but it is in this town down here. It really is. When we were in school, the blacks would sit on one side and the whites would sit on the other side. We did not communicate together. And sometimes I ran into people in town, like just turn their head and stuff, but it doesn't bother me. Because I said, you got to stand before God, same as I do, and your color does not matter. But we have a lot of it. They about like me. They stand up. They got a mouth to say what they got to say. I like when we were kids growing up playing, we never fought. Because if we do something wrong, it would get back to our parents, and you got it double whipping. And that wasn't no fun thing. We learned after the first time, you don't do it no more. But then, when we went to school, we moved to school down here when I was in 1st grade. And, the kids were off different, but as we went through the years, the girls and boys that we was in school with changed. We got to associate with each other and talk with each other. It was a change after we got up into higher grades and everything. But like in high school, We couldn't play basketball or none of that stuff because they didn't have it for girls and stuff in there then. Other than that, we made it through because it was hard for a black person to get in band, play ball, everything in the year that we were in there. Down here at the Franklin grade school, I went to I reckon they call it kindergarten today. We just call it preschool. Up in Moatstown the first year, then they moved us down here to elementary in Franklin. It was all right. I mean, like I said, we sat on one side and they sat on the other side. And then as we got up in towards high school, that's when we started communicating together. But it was rough for us. We couldn't, if you go out to play in the band or something, we would never get a spot to play. And like out there playing like in sports or something, you never got there when we were in there. We was probably the first kindergarten class that come down to the white school. When we came, we were the first ones. And we didn't know what we were getting into when they put us together down there. But they really didn't give us the time like they did the white ones. But we just went on to class like we were supposed to and did what we did. I think I was in about 6th or 7th grade when my mother moved down here. And then I moved down with her a year after that, but it's been a while. No, it wasn't any different. It's just my mother moved down here and I didn't have nowhere up there, so I moved with my mom. It was all right. I knew everybody, and we played together and played tag weapon tonight and all like that. It was nice. Yeah, everybody got along. Well, a lot of them, after they graduated, they moved away. Then a lot of them had moved away as I was a child. Some of them went to Buchanan and Stanton, and they went all over. But we stayed here. You was made to go to church. Our grandparents made us go to church. And I reckon it stuck with me because I went to church all the time. And I forced my kids to go to church, too. We always went to church. I went to Moatstown's, then this one right here, Emmanuel Chapel. We used to have Christmas programs, Easter programs, and then sometime we'd just get together for singing and all like that, yeah. When the older folks were here, we had a good time. Some of the older ones would get out there and play hit the can, kick the can, and all that with us. And you don't find too many older ones, old as some of them was, to go out there and play Red Rover and all like that. We all played together. Well, right now, all the older ones are gone. And there's not many little ones here anymore because they've moved away, so we just don't get together. The only time we get together is at homecomings. I tell you, as I was a child, we had more fun as most kids did. Even though we couldn't go play except 1 hour on Sundays, we still enjoyed that hour we played. And then we knew when we come home, we had chores to do. You did your chores, you did your homework, you went to bed. This was the same routine. And if, like me, I like back the way the old days were. I mean, they was rough on us, but I learned a lot from it. I learned how to treat my family and do stuff with my kids and stuff. And it's an amazing place to be. It's back here and nobody to bother you. You have your own place, and if you want to go visit, you could go visit. If you don't want to go visit, you don't have to. Well, my chore was we had to feed the hogs, feed the chickens, carry in wood. Then when we went to the fields, we raised corn and hay. We had to help with the hay, had to help with the corn and everything. Then we had to learn how to cook. Our grandmother made us, at age 4, stand on a stool, learn how to make bread. She would get up, she said, "Girls, it's time for you all to learn how to make bread." And she'd put us on there and put our aprons on us, made us wash our hands, and she would help us. They never used measuring cups. Your hands were your measuring cups. And she'd say, "Put a pinch of this in," and she would show us how to do that. Then she'd say, "Put a cup in," and she would show us how to do that. And that's how we learned to measure stuff. We didn't have any of that fancy stuff. And today, sometimes my girls say, "Well, how much is a pinch?" I said, "I showed you what a pinch was." But she said, "I'll just use a teaspoon," is what she says. Yeah, but those were the fun times. That's how we learned to cook. We raised sweet potatoes and collard greens. Those are two good foods. I don't know, but they are really good. You take them, wash them up real good. I throw mine in the oven with a little bit of oil on them, stick them, let them bake, then cut them open, put a little butter on it, and a little bit of brown sugar, and there you go. And I like them collard greens, put a ham hock down in them, a little bit of vinegar and garlic. I like them that way.
What's your favorite season?
Fall.
Why is that?
It wasn't as hot. And that's when we got in everything out of the garden and did the hay and the corn and all that stuff. Then we know when that was done, we didn't have to worry about it anymore. Well, we had horses and an old time, I call it a sickle. The horse would pull it, and then we had these rakes made out wood, had little wooden teeth in them, and you'd take that and rake them up on a pile. Then you have a pitchfork, and they come along with a wagon, and you throw that on the wagon. When you got it full, you took it back, and they had a place fenced in where you throw that hay over into that. It's hard work. It's hard work. But we knew in the fall, once you got all that done, you was done till spring planting time. Well, we put out 2 big gardens. They'd take a horse and plow it and furrow it out. Then we'd plant our beans. As they put it in, we would cover it up. Then we'd have to work it through spring and summer and to keep the weeds out. And then when it was time to harvest it, we'd go out there and harvest it all and can it. We used to have to go to school. We never had a day out. We had to wade snow clear up to our waist to get to the road because we come across a guy's place to get to the bus. We walked through all of that. Yeah. And back then in school, you couldn't wear pants. You had to wear dresses the whole time. My mother used to just tell us about when they were kids growing up, what all they had to do, and that they had to make all their clothes they had. They never bought anything. They made everything. And then she would say the days that she liked was when walnuts were picked. They would crack those walnuts, and they'd sit down and make quilts. And she taught us how to do that. She would take old clothes apart, and she would make like squares or a thing like a wagon wheel, and we'd sew them together. And then in the middle, you'd put sometimes she'd put a heavy blanket in the middle and then put a backing on it and stitch it together and knot it. That was our quilts. Because, see, we heat it by wood stove. And when you have a 2-story, it's kind of cold upstairs. The heat's mainly downstairs. I love it. I even love cooking on it because it seems like the food tastes better on it, especially beans. They're really good. But once you get that house real hot, you stayed warm. Then sometimes it was too cold, they would heat a rock and wrap it in a cloth and put it in your bed at your feet. That's how our feet stayed warm. They made their own butter, their own milk, their own beef, their own pork, their own chicken. Only thing, and really their own flour. We raised our own wheat, and they'd take it over to a mill and have it ground, or in Sugar Grove. That's where they got the flour. Because I feel when you're born like in the mountains, you learn what to do and like planning. A lot of people in the city don't know what you're even talking about. But in the mountains, you go out to make your garden, you buy your seeds to plant it. Then if you do good, you can that. You didn't have to go to the store and buy your fruit and stuff like that. You just went in that cellar and got what you needed. We made our own butter and everything. And our lard was from our hogs after we butchered them and rendered it, yeah. To this day and time, you have to change with time. Because the way we lived back there, you couldn't afford to live that way this day. Because like a wood stove, it takes you for a while to go get your wood and stuff, and you can't find a place around here to go get wood. And once you went and cooking all that stuff in there on a wood stove, you could put it on all day and keep a fire in it, and it was really good when you finished. Now today, you just cut a button on and it's done. I think everyone should know them old ways. I try to teach my kids that, and they've learned a lot about it. They're old-fashioned like me, I guess. I'm not into these computers and things like that. I do not know nothing about that stuff. The fresh air, and you can stick back here and have to worry about anybody bothering you. And if you want to go take a walk, you take a walk. You don't have to be afraid or anything. And Nobody bothers you and you don't bother them. They were hard on us, they were rough on us, but we learned. And I thank God they did that to us. I probably wouldn't know what I'm doing today if they hadn't taught us. My kids today tells me, Mom, I know why you did that when we was coming up. They respected me because they couldn't understand back then why I punished them and things, and they'll tell you today, I understand why you did it. We're a better person. Only at homecoming time, they would all get together with the banjos and guitars and be singing on the porch. Our first TV was 2 TVs hooked together. One spoke and one showed a picture. That was our TV. And we never had a radio. They had them Victrolas. That's what we had.